Hello, good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. We're going to be talking about mental health, and my co-host, Overseer LaShera, is going to really navigate this program tonight. I want to say thank you to our moderator, Sister Destiny, for getting us on, and she's going to introduce our guest. But before we do that, I just want to read a few scriptures to you and reference those of you that might be suffering with some kind of mental health and you just feel like you can't make it or you feel like you're just down in a hole. Let me read a few scriptures to you. Philippians 4:6 says, "Do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation, by prayer and petition with thanksgiving, present your requests to God. Talk to God about it. And the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your heart and your mind in Christ Jesus." And Psalms 34:18 says, "The Lord is near to the brokenhearted and save those who are crushed in the spirit." One more, fear not, for I am with you. No matter what you're going through, the Lord said, "Fear not, for I am with you. Be not dismayed, for I am your God." And when you're going through, He said, "I will strengthen you. I will help you, and I will uphold you with my righteous right hand." So, no matter what the situation is, once you get your help, you rely on the Lord and you rely on what your instructor has instructed you to do, and just trust God and know that it's going to be okay. Sometimes when we lose loved ones, something happens in our family, we feel like we just can't make it. But we're here tonight to encourage you, to let you know you can get up, and as one of my pastors used to say, and get over it and go on. So I'm excited tonight. Our guest, Shabana Gross, is with
Mhm.
us, and I don't know if I pronounced that name correctly, but I'm anxious to hear. We're not going to rush her because if our time is up, we're going to ask her to come back and finish the next week. So, Overseer LaShera, at this time, will you just briefly
Okay, she going. All right. Well, good evening to all of you out there in Facebook land. We thank you all so much for joining us for another podcast of Live Talks. And our special guest on tonight is none other than Mrs. Siobhan Gross. She is a licensed family marriage and family therapist and also a counselor. And we thank her so much. We worked together. She was my boss at one time, some years ago. But so thankful that God is doing great things in her life. You know, she has her own business. She is the lead assessor in her business. And Siobhan, we are so thankful for you on tonight. And mental health is real.
Yes.
Mental health is really real. Many don't know that they have some mental health, I'll say mental health challenges. You
Mhm.
know, they cannot identify. They don't lay ownership when there is really something going on up here. So thank you so much for joining us on tonight and just talk to us a little bit about mental health and what you see, and then I'll come back near the end and maybe just ask a few questions if that's okay with you.
Absolutely, absolutely, Cheryl. Thank you so much for having
Yes.
me to be a part of your live talks here. I count it a blessing to be able to come before you and to just talk about mental health. I think it's so important, and to be able to talk about mental health in this specific platform because we know that this is a kingdom platform, and sometimes in our um, in our assignments to do the will of God, sometimes we neglect to talk about mental health in this particular platform in our churches. and things of that nature. So I count it quite an honor to be able to be here. Before I go any further, let me pause and recognize my husband, who is my first covering, and also Bishop Dexter Lamar, who is my spiritual covering. So now that we got that out the way, we could move forward. And of course, I want to thank God for the opportunity, which should have been the first person that I thank. So you wanted me to take it from here, Latrell, or you want me to follow your lead?
No, go ahead. Just
Okay.
talk to us a little bit about mental health, in your business, Siobhan, what you see, what you have seen, and what you're continuing to see, I say, and witness, when it comes to mental health. Yes.
Well, I think, Latrell, being in this field, I think mental health has always been something that's been around. There's a lot of stigma, as you know, that's associated with mental health, people getting the help that they so rightly deserve. And for some, they so rightly need, but may not be aware that they need it. Especially, so I think going back to 2020, I think was a turning point, again, in the field of mental health, because we had experienced the phenomenon that we now know as COVID, an actual pandemic, that brought about a crisis and a panic, and so many things were happening. Sometimes people, we take on a lot. And so when COVID came along, we were not as busy as we had been, didn't really even know what to do with ourselves. So that brought about a lot of fear, brought out a lot of anxiety, a lot of depression, a lot of things that were probably already there, but people didn't really realize they were there until you were having this issue that caused you to be aware that something is not quite right. My emotions are all over the place, or, I have this dampened sense of self, this insecurity, these things. So it was then, I think, that again, that mental health awareness became a priority for us. And so then you started to hear a lot of people started to come out with the self-care, campaign, which I am a big proponent of self-care. I think it's so important, so vitally important that we take care of our own self-care needs. I like to say that I believe that self-care is the prerequisite, is the thing that we need to do to prevent sometimes us from becoming or developing, so to speak, a mental health diagnosis. So much so, like we take care of our physical health, for example, but we know that if we do not take care of our physical health, and I'm going to use diabetes because that's something that's very prominent, especially in the Black community. So I want to use the diabetes as a physical condition to liken it to, or to help explain what I mean when I say that self-care is a prerequisite to taking care of our mental well-being. So, with diabetes, if we don't exercise and we don't eat right, that will affect our A1C level, I believe is what it's called, but our blood sugar levels, in other words. And so if we neglect that, and if we keep going, then we are predisposed and will eventually end up being diabetic. Now, let me put this disclaimer out there because I am not anywhere near a medical professional or a medical doctor or anything close, but I just wanted to put that out there as an illustration of what can also happen to us if we're not careful in doing what we need to do and taking care of our own needs. We don't realize it a lot of times, but stress, because of our busy lives, the tendency for us to just pile on a lot and just go and go and go. We are seeing a lot of professional people, business owners, workers in general that are just working very long hours and getting very little sleep, not eating the right foods, not getting the rest that they need. And these things tend to pile up and cause us to be very stressed and overwhelmed. And a lot of times we don't think about stress as being one of those things that are like could be symptomatic, for lack of a better word, I guess, to say at this particular point in time, of or I should say a cue to what could happen if we don't get that, if we don't manage that stress, right? So we know that stress can do a number of things, which it can also affect us physically as well, because it can cause our blood pressure to fluctuate. But also, stress can also lead to us becoming depressed, and even sometimes it can also lead, especially if it's continuous, if it's persistent, then it goes into us developing anxiety. And so one of the things, and I'm going to deviate because I know that we talk a lot about depression and we talk a lot about PTSD and anxiety, but there are so many more diagnoses that are just out there when it comes to mental health. That there are some things that are deeper. That we may have. We don't talk a lot about schizophrenia. We don't talk a lot about, we talk jokingly about bipolar disorder, and give people that diagnosis. We like to say people are bipolar if they have, these different shifts in moods, but that isn't what is the only thing that constitute, right? Someone being diagnosed with bipolar disorder. And bipolar disorder, by the way, is a very chronic and a very serious disorder. So it's not anything to be played with or joked about. But I wanted to just bring that out there. So let me go back to anxiety, because you asked what have I been seeing a lot of. And today, presently, and I think it's been ongoing, especially since 2020, we've been seeing an increase in anxiety. There are a lot of people who are just really struggling with anxiety, and they may not know exactly what it is, to be able to put a name to what it is that they're actually experiencing. But anxiety, and I'm going to take this from how we end up getting there. If we think about it from a biblical perspective, and I love the fact that your pastor already read to us what it tells us in Philippians 4:6 about how we are to not be anxious about anything. But a lot of times we become very anxious about things. But if you think about the thing that you're becoming anxious about, is because we try to control things that aren't meant for us to control. And when those things seem to get outside of our control, then we start to experience anxiety, or we start to, let me put it this way, fret, or we start to worry, right? And then those things start to spill over into our lives, where we just seem like, we will encounter a point where something may trigger us, and we have issues with our breathing. It feels like we can't breathe, like our chest is caving in. It just, or we just get in this position where we just start sweating, or, the different symptoms and things that we have as a result of experiencing anxiety. So, but that is one of the things that we noticed that we've seen an increase, or that I've seen an increase in terms of people coming before me in my office, or people in general, just as I'm having a conversation with people, then that is something that, they want to talk about, or that they want to discuss. And when they are describing what they're feeling and what they're going through, a lot of time, it's anxiety. We're also seeing a lot of depression. There's been a lot of increase of depression. There is a lot that's going on in this world that contribute to us having these fluctuation in moods, determining our temperature, like whether we are happy or sad. There are so many external forces that is influencing the way that we actually feel, and ultimately sometimes the way that we even, we act. And or think. So we have to be well aware of that. I know that we love social media, we love Facebook. There's good to all of that, but there's also a time when we have to take a break from that. I oftentimes remind clients or people that I'm talking to in general about how the effects of just scrolling sometimes on Facebook and how that can affect you, your psyche, when you're actually looking at all of the things that are going on. Think about what your mind is actually seeing and what your brain is processing as you're scrolling on Facebook or on Instagram or any of the other social media. There's a barrage of things that are happening and images that you see. You see horrific scenes sometimes. Sometimes you see upsetting imagery. Sometimes you see happy things. And sometimes, again, you see bad things. So you get what I'm saying? So one minute you may be seeing a picture of a married couple, somebody who just got married. The next minute you may be seeing somebody who's buried a loved one. And then the next minute you could be seeing a news report flash that goes by that talks about, somebody was robbed or killed or something of that nature. So your brain is seeing all of this and it's processing all of this. And in the meanwhile, you're wondering why it is that you feel so heavy, or that you feel so depleted, or you feel so depressed, or you feel so anxious, but you're constantly feeding your mind and you're not aware of what it is that you're feeding your mind. And as you're doing this and as your brain is processing it, then you're also starting to feel a certain way. You may be starting to feel blue. Again, you may be having these anxious feelings, feeling afraid, like what feels like no apparent reason, but you're just all of a sudden feel fearful and you don't know exactly what it is that has come over you to make you feel that way. Or maybe now you feel extremely tired and you're withdrawn. I don't want to go out. I don't want to be with my friends. You're isolated. These are all beginning to be symptoms of depression. So there's a list of things that that you check off when you're actually going through to determine whether it's somebody has a major depression disorder, a mood disorder, period. So we just have to be mindful of those things and make sure we take things in doses. It's good to be able to take a break because your brain need that. You need to be able to take a break. And that's one of the things I teach as well when we're talking about self-care, is making sure you leave room throughout the day where you're taking breaks. You actually need mental breaks throughout today to give your brain a break from looking at the same thing that, even at work when you're working on. Sometimes we can get caught up in the routine of things because it's just the nature of the job. But we have to learn to be able to take a break, to give our mind, to just kind of shift our mindset for just a second, to focus on something else. Sometimes you say, how you say sometimes that I need a change of scenery. Well, that's kind of true of your brain. It's almost like you need to switch the channel on your brain so that you're not overloading your senses and overloading yourself with this information that could be detrimental to your mental health. Right. So we know that our emotions play a big part in our mental health. How we feel and how we think and things of that nature is all connected. And then sometimes it spills out in the way that we act or interact with other people, which can be problematic. So I know I said a lot in that short period of time. So Latrell or Pastor Foyer, if you have any questions for me or something you want me to elaborate on, then please at this time do so.
Well,
go ahead, Pastor.
It's what you're saying is interesting, and I was trying to think of myself as you were talking and how I can improve the things that I do. But I know when I get anxious, I can't sleep. I will be up all night long. No matter what I take or what I do, I'm not able to fall asleep until that problem has been solved. Then I can sleep for days. So I'm trying to manage that. It's very difficult to do because I can take sleeping medicine and spray lavender, and I can do all of it. But can you give us some hint as to how do you just bring yourself back down to earth and it seems like we're up here and we need to just calm down?
Yeah. The anxiety is it can be very debilitating, and people really don't understand that. So when you're having panic attack, which is a whole nother by itself, that's a whole separate diagnosis. But if you're looking at panic attacks, and then if you're looking at but panic attacks can actually occur when you're actually you have like a type of anxiety disorder. But you're absolutely right. It can have you up, and it seems like it's nothing you can do until it actually passes, until something. But the important thing to realize is when you're actually experiencing anxiety, the first thing that you want to do is you want to ground yourself. And how you ground yourself is bringing awareness to what is around you. What do you see in your room? What are you smelling? That type of stuff. Because what's happening is your brain is reacting to some trigger that make you feel like you have an immediate threat or that you're in an immediate danger, when in fact you isn't. Whatever, typically you aren't anymore when you're experiencing that. So what you want to do is you want to try to be very alert to what it is that's going on around you. So you have to get to the point where you actually learn to calm yourself. So the first thing would be grounding yourself. Once you start to ground yourself, then you want to go into the breathing exercises where you're doing deep breathing. Now, it's very important that you actually work with someone that can help you learn how to breathe, because it's not just as simple as most people make it seem. Breathe in and out through your nose. It sounds like a really simple thing to do, but it is an art to it. You kind of want to think of it as if you are blowing a balloon, because you want to make sure that you're taking the breath in through your nose and that you're doing so very slowly. I like to tell my clients to count as they're doing it, if they in their head, if you can, like 1001, 1002, 1003 as you're breathing, and then you want to hold it. And then you release it very slowly. And you do that count again as you're releasing it. But they should be really deep breaths that you're taking in and deep breaths going out. So as you're breathing in through your nose, if you can place your hands on your stomach, you should feel your stomach expanding, kind of rising as you're breathing in, because you're taking air in, and you want the air to not just in your lungs, but you want to feel the air like it's going into your stomach, right? And then as it come out, if you have your hands like this on your stomach, you should also be feeling that your stomach is becoming as you're letting the breath come out. That's all a part of God's perfect plan. Like the breath is so important, right? It gives life. That's the whole purpose of it. And that's why the breathing exercises, when you learn to do them correctly and you do them for a period of time, then it helps you calm as you get into this mode where you're feeling anxiety, right? So sometimes we say, well, we do it just 3 times, but 3 times may not work. You really got to sit there and just get to the point where you can really do those deep breaths in and out and really be able to allow the life to come into and back out of you as you are inhaling and exhaling, right? And for you, Pastor, it may be helpful if you are quoting scripture as you're doing this, like the 23rd Psalm or something along that nature. But I will also tell you that a really good app to use. I was introduced to this recently myself. It's called Lectio 365 or 65. It's Lectio 65, I think, or 365.
Well, I can
But
say that is one exercise that I do often,
mm-hmm,
especially before going into prayer.
mm-hmm.
That's how I relax and get in that mode where I can really commune with the Lord. So I'm really familiar with that one. I
Okay,
like that. Yes, I like that
okay.
one. And it does work. But I never thought about doing it when I can't sleep.
Right, exactly. Because that's the whole thing. What you're wanting to do is you're wanting to refocus your mindset. You want to take your mind, because even though you may not actually be aware of what it is that's triggering you, because the brain is such an amazing entity in itself. So what happens is that uh, I say that the brain never forgets, even though I know that we have dementia, and it seems like it's proving me wrong, but I still believe that within your brain that it remembers, the information is still stored there. So what's happening is, although it may not be brought to light, you may not be thinking at the forefront of like I don't know what this is, why I'm experiencing this. I just tried to lay down and go to sleep, and all of a sudden I woke up in a panic. You know, my palms are sweating, and you know, I feel hot, and I feel like I can't breathe, like an elephant is sitting on my chest. Those things. But your brain, there is something that has happened to you in your past, whether it's your recent past or your past, that something has happened, and it's triggering you. It could have been an event from earlier today, something you saw, or you know, a scent that you smell, an aroma, a fragrance of something that triggers your brain. And then now that your brain is triggered, now your body is responding, kind of like the fight or flight thing is responding as if the thing that is triggering you is happening. Let's just say you were someone who was abused, or let me just, maybe in a bad car accident, someone who had been in a bad car accident. And so you notice that ever since that bad car accident, that you have these moments where you experience this anxiety, this that just seems to just take a hold of you. And so, but you don't know what it is. But you remember when you were in the accident, it was a blue, you know, Chevrolet, that caused the accident. So maybe you saw a blue Chevrolet, your mind did. And so now you're remembering, maybe I seen something on TV or something that triggered me. And so here my brain is ringing these bells like ding, ding, ding. It's giving you an alarm that something is wrong or something is not quite right. And it's treating as if the threat is still there, like it's a live threat, when in fact it isn't, which is in part why we say you have to ground yourself to where the environment that is around you when this is happening to you, because you're trying to get your brain to realize that the threat that it is perceiving to be there is not actually there.
Yeah.
This is why we actually help you to do the breathing exercises to help calm you down and bring your levels back down so that you will be able to function again. But there are things that you know things that you want to do to just get your mindset off of it. If you can focus on watching a television show that something that's lighthearted, of course you don't want to watch anything that might be triggering to you again. But things of that nature.
Gotcha.
I have a question, Siobhan, when it comes to medication. Some of your clients that could be new clients, do some come to you? They may have, visited with someone prior before you. They may already be on medication, or they're just kind of seeking out when it comes to medications.
So when it comes to medication, sometimes I've had both, and I do have both. Mm-hmm. Some people come with medication. I've had quite a few people who are not taking any type of medication. And again, I think a lot of that, when I talk to them, they feel a certain type of way about having to take medication because, again, the medication this is tied to more of a stigma. Me, with my own personal experience, I can remember when I was younger, when I first went off to undergraduate school, and I was way in the throes of depression, and which actually had started even prior to me going away to college. And I was like, I couldn't believe, like, I was so ashamed of the fact that, I had to take medication because I assumed that medication made me crazy and it separated me from all of my friends, everybody else that I was hanging with, because to my knowledge, they weren't taking medication and they weren't seeing a psychiatrist to manage their medications. So we see that because we think if we're prescribed a medication for mental, health, that something must be really, really wrong with me because I got to take medication. So that's why it's so important that when we have the psychiatrists or the medical doctors or the nurse practitioners who are prescribing these medications, that they really explain what the medications are for and why they're actually giving the medication. Because a lot of times when we're experiencing challenges with mental health, like the anxiety or the depression, sometimes you do have to have medication in addition to therapy, to help you be able to manage that condition. So, yeah, sometimes I do have people who come in that are already taking medication. And then, but because I'm not, that's not my area of expertise. I
Right,
don't
right.
manage their medication.
Mm-hmm.
But we can talk about like their
Right.
medication in terms of, like the side effects, and if they feel like their
Mhm.
medication is working, and then, we redirect them to
Yes.
the provider who has actually, but there are some who need medications. And so we make the appropriate referral for them to,
Referral.
see their doctor or whomever to get, to get assessed or evaluated to be able to take, to decide, to determine whether or not they need medication. More times than not, when a suggestion, what I found, if a recommendation or referral is made for a client to get medication, then they typically do get put on medication by their medical provider.
Hmm. Okay. Awesome. 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 But this has been so awesome, Siobhan. Like we said earlier, mental health is real, and many don't acknowledge, when they have an
Mhm.
issue, particular issue going on.
Absolutely.
They think I'm okay.
Yeah.
I don't need to talk to anybody. I am just fine.
Yeah.
But we know the first step into getting help, we have
Mhm.
to acknowledge,
That's it.
acknowledge those things that are going on and be willing.
Mhm.
It's okay to talk to somebody.
Mhm.
It is
Absolutely.
really, because you talk to somebody, it does not mean that you're crazy. It does not
Exactly.
mean that you're losing your mind. But you just need
Exactly.
a little extra help me out here.
Yes, exactly. Because truly what we're seeing usually is someone that is having if we had to put it on levels, we really
Uh-huh.
see people that are just at the base, at the ground level. So we
Right.
usually, this is something that we can take care of at this level and help,
Hmm.
and if it happens to progress or bloom, turn into something that's more significant or profound than we had initially imagined, at least you've already started. It's just like if you've, again, I go back to, your mental health is just as important as your physical health. So just like
Yes.
when you receive those diagnoses sometimes, and the doctor say, well, we first thought it was a bad cold, but now we know it's the flu. Oh, well, by the way, now it's something more serious. It can be the same way, but at least you've already been getting treatment. So you've already become acclimated to your provider. So they can help. That there's somebody there that's following, your treatment, and then could be able to work together if you get additional providers like a psychiatrist or someone who may be managing your medication. So you're absolutely right, Latrell, in reference to that. Sometimes we don't want to admit that there is a
Hmm.
problem, but it
Yes.
really is okay to not be okay. But you have
Hmm.
to acknowledge it so that you can bring, only awareness can only be brought about when you acknowledge it, and we can only deal with what we are aware of. If you're wanting to pretend that it's not happening or that you're okay when you're not, we can't help you. We just can't
Right.
help
Right.
you.
Awesome.
Well,
Siobhan, this has, go ahead,
no,
Patricia.
I was going to say thank you. Um,
Yes.
enjoyed, of course. We knew that we might have to have two sessions in order to get the time in because we are scheduled for another um, prayer line in a few minutes.
Hmm.
And so we just want to thank you so, so, so much for coming. And please, please do a part two for us. I know you cannot cram all this in
Mhm.
1 30-minute sitting, but it has been helpful. When I get off this line and start relaxing, I'm going back to my breathing. I used to do it all the time and kind of like slip. They even teach us that in Tai Chi uh, to do that in order
Mhm.
to uh, help us with our
Mhm.
whatever we're going through.
Mhm.
But once again, Overseer Sherry, you have anything before we close out?
I'm just excited, Siobhan. I have learned so much on
Mhm.
tonight. And I mean, you just really written enlighten us, and I know there's more to come. I mean, if you would check your schedule so that we can go and do part 2 on next
Okay.
week.
Okay.
Just let me know, and yes, we'll definitely make it happen for you. But we just
Absolutely.
thank you so much. I can't read the comments, but there are Pastor probably can see them more so than I can. But there
Yes.
are some comments out there.
And we'll talk about them on our next
Okay.
study, if you don't mind.
Yes.
We will talk. And I do want to close with Matthew 11:28 that says, "Come to me, all who are laden and heavy laden, and I will give you rest.
Yeah.
Take my yoke upon you and learn of me, for I am gentle and lowly in heart, and you will find rest for your souls." So
Amen.
I am excited uh, what the Lord says and the avenue He has given us to handle these things just go hand in hand. And if we work together, put these together, God will truly, truly bring deliverance. So thank you again. We hope to see you again next Tuesday. And to everybody that's watching, why don't you like and share? Please like and share. This will help somebody. Maybe it might not help you, but it might help your friend, your daughter, your sister, or somebody, your brother, somebody in your family. So please tune in next week, 7 o'clock, and we are praying that we can do part 2 to mental health, what we can do to feel better and look better
That's it.
and to act better. And I can go on with the better. To God be the glory. Remember, I love you with the love of the Lord. And I do see in you the glory of the Lord. Yes, we love you with the love of the Lord. Good night, everybody. God bless.